Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shiur.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, Shabbos Daf Yutes. We're 2 lines from the top. Says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanim, we learned in the Brayse. One may place food in front of a dog, b'chatzer, in the courtyard, which is a Rishus HaYachid. Not leviyatz, even though the dog picked it up and carried it out to Rishus HaRabim, there's no concern. Ein niskaken lo, he need not be concerned about it. It's not as though he sent the food out with the dog. The dog decided on his own, and it's unrelated to the Yid. Kayotze, a similar halacha we find, one may place food in front of a non-Jew in a chatzar, although not leviyatza, he picked up the food and he carried it out to Rishus HaRabim. Ein niskaken lo, he need not be concerned about it. The guy did it on his own prerogative, has nothing to do with the Yisrael. Says the Gemara, Hasul Amali, why do we need to add the second halacha to the first? Hainu hach, this seems to be a duplicate halacha. Says the Gemara, perhaps I would think there's room to be mechalik, to differentiate between these 2 halachas. Ma'udatem, perhaps I would think, Hai Ramile, regarding a dog, that it's mutter because the kel of the dog is dependent on him for his sustenance. The Gemara tells us, the Medrash tells us that the dog's parnas is very limited. His food is very scarce, and therefore Hashem actually did a chesed and prolonged the digestion process in the dog. It takes 3 days for him to digest his food, so that he doesn't get hungry too quickly. So in any case, the dog is Ramiale. It depends on us for sustenance. Perhaps over there the Chacham allowed it. However, regarding the guy, the guy is not dependent on him. Perhaps I would think in that case it's usher to offer him food, lest he go carry down Rishus HaRabim, and it would appear as though the Yisrael sent it out. Kamash Malan, therefore the Brayse informs us there's no chiluk, there's no difference between the halacha of Kelev and the halacha of Nachor. In either case, he didn't actually send the food out to Rishus HaRabim, he merely placed it in front of them. The fact that they carried it out is unrelated to him, and there's no concern whatsoever. Continues the Gemara, Tanu Rabbanim, we learned in the Brayse, Lo yaskir adam kelev l'nachri be'erev Shabbos. One should not rent his kelim to a nachri on Erev Shabbos. Now Tosfos speaks out, we're speaking about a kli, which is something perhaps doesn't even do malacha, like a garment. That too cannot be rented to a guy on Erev Shabbos. Tosfos also speaks out that certainly if the rental is a daily rental, it's based on a daily rate, in that case, you never could rent when you are receiving a separate, distinct payment for Shabbos. Schar Shabbos is also. It's only mutter when it's behavla, when the schar, when the payment for the Shabbos rental is arranged in a way that it is swallowed within the rest of the rental. For instance, a weekly rate, a monthly rate. In that case, it's allowed to rent something even though it includes Shabbos within it. Explains Tosfos, our Gemara is speaking about if he's renting even a garment which doesn't involve a klei malacha. The klei is not going to do malacha, and we're speaking about that the schar Shabbos is behavla. It's swallowed into the rest of the rate. It's not a distinct Shabbos rate, and there's no distinct clear schar Shabbos here. Nevertheless, the Brayse tells us on Erev Shabbos, so close to Shabbos, one may not rent the klei to the nachri, because it appears perhaps that he's giving it to him specifically for Shabbos, and he's going to get schar Shabbos. Other Rishonim say that if we're speaking about a kli that can do malacha, it appears as though he's ordering the guy to do malacha on Shabbos. The malacha that the guy is doing on Shabbos is at the behest of the Yisrael. So in any case, lo yaskir adam kelev l'nachri be'erev Shabbos. This is only on Erev Shabbos because it's so close to Shabbos. Bedalad uvehei, on Wednesday and Thursday mutter, certainly it is permitted. Kayotze, says the Brayse, another similar halacha, ein meshalchen igrois biad nachri be'erev Shabbos. One may not send a letter to be delivered by a non-Jew. He can't send it on Erev Shabbos. Bedalad uvehei mutter. On Wednesday and Thursday, it is mutter. If you send it on Shabbos, then when the guy will carry the letter on Shabbos, it would appear as though he's doing the shlichus. He's an emissary, he's an agent of the Yid who sent him. And therefore, you may not send the letter on Erev Shabbos. However, if it's only Wednesday and Thursday, it's enough removed from Shabbos that doesn't really have relation to Shabbos yet, and therefore you could send it with a nachri. Continues the Gemara. Amru Olav al Rav Yossi HaKohen. The story was said regarding Rav Yossi HaKohen, but some say it was Rav Yossi HaChassid, that they were very machmir, very stringent upon themselves. Not only didn't they send a letter on Erev Shabbos, they never would place their letter in the hands of a nachri any day of the week, for fear that perhaps the letter will be carried on Shabbos by the guy. Tanu Rabbanu, we learned in the Bryce, ein mishalchin igeres biyad nachri erev Shabbos. So once again, one may not send a letter in the hand of a nachri if it is erev Shabbos. Continues the Bryce, Elohim kain koitis loydamim, unless they set a determined set amount for the job. He gives him a fee for delivering the letter. So he's not paying him by the hour for his time. He's paying him a set fee for the job, for the project, for the delivery of the letter. In that case, explains Rashi, since he didn't directly order him, of course, to bring it on Shabbos, he gave it to him on Erev Shabbos, they set a fee, he paid him for the delivery, the guy takes the letter, and he decides on his own prerogative that he's going to deliver on Shabbos. He's doing it for his own convenience. He's not doing it at the behest of the Yisrael who sent him. Therefore, it is mutter even on Erev Shabbos. But if there was no ktzitzas damim, he's paying him by the hour. In that case, the time, the effort of the guy is viewed as he's doing the Yid's work. He's viewed as an employee of the Yisrael. In that case, if he delivers the letter on Shabbos, that's also because the guy is doing work for the Yisrael. However, if it's katzatz, if you stipulate a set fee for the job, he's not paying him for his time, not paying him by the hour, he's paying for the job. In that case, even if the guy eventually does it on Shabbos, it is b'didei katarach. He is doing his own malacha. The guy is unrelated to the Yisrael. Continues the price. The only way you could send the letter with the guy in Erev Shabbos, if there's enough time available for the nachri to reach the home of the recipient. That's not necessary. Even if there's only enough time for him to reach the first house in the city, that's sufficient. We'll rely on the possibility that the recipient happens to be in the first house, and he can deliver it to them right there. Says Gemara, 1 second. We're speaking about a case of katzatz here, that he stipulated a set amount, he's paying him for the delivery. So why do you need all these conditions? Why does Vasila say he has to have enough time available to get to the first house in the city? Vale katzatz. Once that he stipulated a set fee, he's paying him for the delivery, for the job, and not paying him by the hour, not paying him for his time. So what difference does it make how much time is available before Shabbos? As long as he doesn't actually instruct him to bring it on Shabbos. He can bring it to Erev Shabbos, he can bring it to on Sunday. Once he's kaitit, that's an all across the board heter. So what does the Brisa mean that he needs to have enough time to get to the first house? Now Rashi points out that certainly according to Beis Shammai, this kasha is not shver, because Beis Shammai already hold, earlier in the Gemara and Daf Yomi, we learned that even selling an item or giving him a present on Erev Shabbos is not mutter unless there's enough time for him to arrive at his destination. So according to Beis Shammai, whether or not he's kaitzitz, whether or not he stipulates a set amount for this delivery, the halacha will remain the same. If he's sending him with him on Erev Shabbos, there needs to be enough time available for him to reach his complete destination. So certainly according to Beis Shammai, this kasha is not a kasha. We understand why according to Beis Shammai, it is kedei she'yagil lebeisai. He needs to have enough time to actually arrive at his destination. Even if it's katzatz, there is this requirement. However, according to Beis Hillel, who never set down this requirement in the case of him selling something to the guy or giving him a present, and certainly in this case of katzatz as well, why is there this condition of having enough time to arrive at the first house in the city? Vali katzatz. If the guy delivers letter on Shabbos, it's his own thing. He's busy with his own job. It has nothing to do with the Yisrael. Amar Rav Sheshes, you must reinterpret the Brisa. You're right. If there was a tzitza, if he's paying him a set amount for the delivery, certainly, according to Beis Hillel, he may indeed send a letter with the guy even very close to Shabbos, because the Nachri is being involved in his own malacha, unrelated to the Yisrael. So what then does the Brisa mean? Hochi kamer, v'im loy katzatz. So the seif of the Brisa is referring to a case where there was no ktzitza. He's paying him by the hours, paying for the time. In that case, the malacha that the guy is doing is directly related to the Yisrael. He's considered to be as though he's the employee of the Yisrael who sent him. And therefore, there needs to be enough time available for him to reach his destination. He needs to arrive at his final destination, at the home of the recipient. That's not necessary. As long as he reaches the first bayis in the city, we can rely on the possibility that the recipient is present there. But the point here is that in the case of loy katzatz, there's no heter to send the letter with him on Erev Shabbos, because in this case he indeed is the employee of the Yisrael. He's doing the malacha directly for the Yisrael. So there needs to be enough time for him to arrive at his destination before Shabbos. So it's more, okay, I understand. Now, katzatz allows all across. Loy katzatz, there's some conditions. But how does this work? Let's take a look at the beginning of the Brisa, of Amris Reisha. If we take a close look at the Reisha of the Brisa said, one cannot send an Igeres Biad Nochi Erev Shabbos, Elohim came katzatz. The Brisa appears to be stating very clearly that the only way to send a letter with a guy is if there was a tzitza, if he's paying him for the job, for the delivery. Implied from this is that if there is no tzitza, and there's no way you could send the letter with the guy on Erev Shabbos. So how can you say that even when there's no tzitza, you could send it, provided there's enough time to arrive at the first home in the city? This seems to be a contradiction between the Reisha and the Seifa. It says more about Amris Reisha, but haven't you said in the Reisha, if there's no tzitza, you may not at all send a letter on Erev Shabbos. Loi kasha says more, it's not difficult. It depends under what circumstance. The Seifa which allows sending a letter even when there's no tzitza, even when he's paying him by the hour, he's paying for the actual work. It is mutter provided that there is a Beit Doyar, which is the postmaster, the official. So the home, the home of the Doyar, of the official, of the postmaster, there's a post office fixed, established in the Masa, in the city. In that case, he simply has to deliver it to the post office, and he need not worry about it any longer. He doesn't have to go follow and look for the Yisrael in the city. Therefore, the Brisa tells us that even if he's loy katzatz, even if he's paying by the hour, but there's enough time available for him to reach the first bayis in the city, we can rely on the possibility that the postmaster, the official, is actually present in the first house in the city, and the nachar will be able to deliver the letter directly to him, and not need to carry the letter any longer on Shabbos. So therefore it's mutter. In the Reisha, which implies that when there's no tzitza, one may not send the letter in any case on Erev Shabbos. That is a case when there's no postmaster, there's no post office in the city. And there's a concern that even if there's enough time available for him to reach the city, but perhaps he won't find the recipient, he won't find the Yisrael, he'll have to go look for him, he'll have to search for him, and he'll carry around with him the letter on Shabbos itself. Says the Gemara, the Reisha which told us that this is not permitted is the loy kaviyah, when there's no fixed Beit Doyar b'masa, when the Beit Doyar, the postmaster, is not fixed, is not established in the city. In this case, we're concerned that he'll go look after the Yisrael and carry the letter on Shabbos itself. So, in summary, according to Beis Hillel, what is the halach of sending an igeris in the hands of a nachri? So if it's Wednesday or Thursday, it's permitted under all circumstances. The same halach applies to katzatz. If they set a fixed amount for the delivery, the guy is occupying himself with his own job, with his own malacha. There's no relation to the Yid. The Yid is not paying him for his time, and therefore, if the nachri decides to deliver the letter on Shabbos itself, he's doing so on his own prerogative, for his own convenience. It's not as though the Yisrael is sending him to do the malach, and therefore it is mutter in any case. The question arises when there was no ktzitza, and it is Erev Shabbos, so he's paying for his time, for his effort, for his actual work. So the Gemara concludes it depends under what circumstance. If there's a Beit Doyar, there's a post office, So then it is sufficient if there's enough time available, Kadei Sheyagia L'Bayis Rishon, to the first city, the Bayis Samachol, the first home, the first house in the city, where he can simply deliver the letter to the postmaster, who hopefully is there. If there's no Beidar in the city, in that case it's Asr, because we're concerned that he won't find the recipient, and we'll have to go look for him, have to go follow him on Shabbos, and carry the letter on behalf of the Yisrael on Shabbos. Continues the Gemara. Tana Rabban, we learned in the Bryce. Eimar fliegen besfina. One may not set sail. Pachos migimel yomim kodem Shabbos. If it's within 3 days to Shabbos. Various explanations in the Mefarshim and the Rishonim. The Rosh explains as follows: that within the first 3 days of traveling in a sfina, one is prone to seasickness, and this will interfere with Einik Shabbos if it's within 3 days to Shabbos. Therefore, one must make sure to set sail at least 3 days before Shabbos, so that the seasickness will dissipate by the time Shabbos comes along. Tosfos points out that the Gemara is based on the halacha, the Isser D'Rabbanan of Ein Shatin. One is not allowed to swim on Shabbos for fear that he might go ahead and craft a boat. So this is a Gzeira D'Rabbanan, and therefore within 3 days of Shabbos, from Wednesday and on, it is already considered to be the advent of Shabbos, and one must take care that he doesn't put himself into a situation where he's going to do Chilul Shabbos, and therefore he should only be maflik prior to this 3 day period, which is already sufficiently removed from Shabbos, and he's not yet responsible for the upcoming Shabbos. The Baal Amor has a different pshat. He says that boat travel, sometimes will be accompanied inevitably with Chilul Shabbos, with malachis that need to be done for in life-threatening situations. Therefore, one must ensure that he doesn't set sail within 3 days to Shabbos, because it appears as though he's putting himself in a situation, in a setting, which will inevitably lead to Chilul Shabbos. So he's neglecting the upcoming Shabbos. But this only applies to within 3 days of Shabbos, which is already considered to be part of the upcoming Shabbos, the advent of the upcoming Shabbos. However, more than 3 days before Shabbos, it doesn't appear as though he's putting himself in a situation of Chilul Shabbos for the upcoming Shabbos. It's too far removed from the upcoming Shabbos, and it is okay. So once again, Tana Rabban, Eima fliegen besfina, one may not set sail in a boat, Pachos migimul yom kodem Shabbos. Ba'med v'mamrum. When is this halacha said? L'dvar shus, if he's going for a non-mitzvah purpose, for an elective activity, aval l'dvar mitzvah, if he's going for a mitzvah, shaper dami, then certainly it is fine. Oisik mitzvah, pater mitzvah, he's allowed to do it. Continues the Brayse. U'poisik imoi, amanas lishpois. Now the Yisrael, prior to disembarking, he's meant to go ahead and stipulate to the captain, please idle the ship on Shabbos. He's meant to express his intent, his kavanah, that he doesn't want to travel on Shabbos. Even though eventually the captain will not adhere to this and he'll continue with his journey even on Shabbos, that's okay. There's no concern as long as he expressed his displeasure of traveling on Shabbos. Some explain that even if the captain immediately responds and rejects his request, that's okay as long as he, the Yisrael, expressed it to the captain. Divrei Rebbe, who requires him to stipulate to the captain that he doesn't want to travel on Shabbos. It's not necessary for him to make the stipulation and request of the captain to idle the ship on Shabbos. Concludes the Brayse. Umitzur Letzidan. These are two cities that were relatively close to each other, so one may set sail from one to the other. Afilu be'er Shabbos mutter, because it is a very short journey. Continues the Gemara, another halacha related to this 3 day prior to Shabbos concept. Tana Rabban, ein tsarin ala yoresh shel nachri. They may not set a siege on non-Jewish cities. Pachos migimel yomim kodem LaShabbos. Within 3 days to Shabbos. Now, obviously, we're speaking about a situation where it's not pikuach nefesh right now. It's not a life-threatening situation that requires them to set siege immediately. So for whatever reason they need to make this siege, and they still have the option of timing it in a way which is convenient for them. So they should do it in a way that is not within 3 days before Shabbos. Again, the Rishonim explain because it appears as though they're placing themselves in a situation which might inevitably involve Chilul Shabbos, and therefore it's a zilzah, a degradation of the coming Shabbos. So one is obligated to already prepare for the upcoming Shabbos if it is within 3 days of Shabbos. So once again, ein tzoron al ayores, one may not set siege on Ayor Shal Nachri, non-Jewish cities, Pachas Megil Yom Chav Shabbos, because it appears as though they're placing themselves in a situation which will inevitably involve Chilul Shabbos, and this should not be done when it's within 3 days to the upcoming Shabbos. But once they've begun the siege, even if it was timed inappropriately, but once they've begun, they don't interrupt it. The pasuk describing the siege that they will lay on the non-Jewish cities, the pasuk says adridta, until it becomes conquered. So what is the point of these words? We learn from here, drasha afilu b'Shabbos. Even if the siege has taken place on Shabbos, we're meant to conclude and complete it until the city is conquered. As the Mepharshim speak out, we're speaking about even a case where ceasing and interrupting from the siege would not bring about a situation of pikuach nefesh, would not bring upon them a life-threatening situation. Nevertheless, we learn from this pasuk of adridata that they may conclude the siege even if it is Shabbos. So, in conclusion, we have two halachas that pertain to within 3 days before Shabbos. Firstly, ein mafligin b'sfina, one may not set out and sail in a ship. And the Rosh gives the reason because the seasickness won't interfere with the Einik Shabbos. The other Rishonim explain because one may not put himself in a situation which appears as though he is expecting to need to be Mechalel Shabbos in the upcoming Shabbos, and therefore within 3 days it's already considered to be the advent of the upcoming Shabbos, and he's obligated to safeguard the Kedusha of the upcoming Shabbos. For the same reason, do not lay a siege around a non-Jewish city within 3 days of the upcoming Shabbos. Continues the Gemara. Omar Rav Shimon Gamliel Noigen Hayu. Tani will learn to the price. Omar Rav Tzadok Kach Haya Menhaga Shabbos Rav Gamliel. This was the custom of the household of Rav Gamliel. Shoyunois Niklei Lovan. They would pass on their white laundry lekoivis to the non-Jewish launderer. Gimel Yom Koyin Shabbos. So they gave him enough time. They gave him 3 days to wash their laundry before Shabbos. Utzvuim, however, when it came to colored laundry, I feel over Shabbos, they would hand it over even at Shabbos. Apparently there was enough time, even within 1 day, to wash their colored laundry. In fact, says the Gemara with Devarim Lamadnu, from their words, we can conclude, Shalavanim Kashem Lachapsan Yoser Minatzvuim, that white laundry is more difficult. It's more tedious. It takes longer to wash them than colored laundry. Therefore, white laundry required 3 days in order to have the non-Jewish laundryman completed before Shabbos. However, regarding colored laundry, they passed it on to him even on Erev Shabbos. In fact, based on this, says the Gemara the following story: Abaya Havayoyvle Haumana Detzvia. Abaya gave the colored garment lekatra to the laundryman. Amarle, and he asked him. So he asked the laundryman, what's your fare, what's your rate for washing my garment? Amarle, so the fellow responded, the same price as a white garment. Amarle, Sabai responded, the Rabbanan have already preceded you. They've already taught us that it can't be that you're charging the same for colored and white. The Rabbanan taught us that white garments require much more work. And therefore, it must be that the colored garment is cheaper than the white garment. Amar Abai, a piece of advice for one who hands his laundry to the laundryman, Haiman the Yoiv Mana Lakatra, when he gives his garment to the koivis, to the laundryman, B'mishcha Neisivlei, he should measure it prior to handing it over. Ub'mishcha Nishkumane, and when he receives it, he should measure it again. Why? Because if he finds, when he receives it, he finds that it's larger in size than when he handed it over to him. Apparently, after day, he he damaged it. The matche, because he stretched it out when he washed it. The butzer, and if he finds it upon receipt to be smaller in size, after they hear too, apparently the koves, the washerman, he damaged it, the kavtze, because he shrunk it in hot water. Therefore it's important to measure it when you give it, and also upon receipt. Continues the Gemara, V'shav and Elu Ve'elu, Shetainen. The Mishnah concluded with the halacha that even according to Beis Shammai, who obligate one to idle his utensils, shvisas kelim, a person may not have his kelim perform malacha for him on Shabbos. That's only regarding the other malachas, like placing the wool with the dye in the vat, etc. But regarding a case where he already crushed his olives and his grapes before Shabbos, and he's merely placing the beam or the round planks on them in order to expedite the flow of juice, in this case, he may do so. He may arrange this right before Shabbos, although the extraction of juice will proceed throughout the Shabbos. Says, well, what's the difference between those malachas and this? Why regarding those halachas do indeed Beis Shammai apply an Isser and don't allow one to begin the malacha so close to Shabbos, for concern that the malacha will proceed throughout Shabbos and the keli is doing a malacha for him? Or Ma'ishna, what is the difference between that and Kodesh Beis Abad, the Gulei Agas, the beam and the round planks that are placed upon the olives and grapes? They're like Gazru. Here, the Beis Shammai do not prohibit. They allow one to place them before Shabbos, even though the process will continue throughout Shabbos. Says what? There's a big difference between the two. Hanach, all those other malachas, for instance, placing the wool with the dye inside the vat, that's a true bona fide malacha. The avalu b'Shabbos mechayev chatas. If a person were to do that actually on Shabbos, he would be chayev chatas. It's a malacha deiraisa. Therefore, gazruhu Beis Shammai erev Shabbos mechashech. Therefore, Beis Shammai applied a prohibition, an isser, if one begins that process erev Shabbos close to Shabbos, since the process of the malacha deiraisa will continue proceeding throughout Shabbos, and his kli may not do a malacha for him on Shabbos. However, in this case, kodesh beis habad v'gulei hagas, so these heavy items that are placed on top of the crushed fruit, in this case it's different. The avalu b'Shabbos, if a person were to actually place the beam on the crushed olives on Shabbos itself, lo mechayev chatas, that's not a melacha, he's not chayev chatas. Therefore, Beis Shammai did not apply an isser for one who begins this process close to Shabbos, even though it will continue. The juice will continue flowing throughout Shabbos as a result of the heavy beam that was placed on it erev Shabbos. Now, what indeed is the difference between this last case and the other cases? So the difference is because what type of malacha, potential malacha, are we speaking about when we speak about squeezing fruits on Shabbos? So it's a toilada, a derivative of the malacha of dash. We may not separate something from its source, like threshing the grain, which separates the actual grain kernel from its husk, from its shell. So that's a malacha deiraisa. A derivative of a tilad of that malacha is one who squeezes fruits and extracts the juice by doing so. So that is considered to be a tilad of dash, because he's separating the juice from its source and detaching it from its natural moorings. But in this case, where it's not whole fruit any longer, the fruit was already crushed prior to Shabbos, says Gemara, this case will not entail a malacha any longer, because the juice has already been extracted. The process of the juice flowing out of the fruit has already begun, has already been removed from its source, detached from its moorings. And therefore, if a person were to take these crushed fruits and squeeze them on Shabbos, even on Shabbos itself, there will be no chatas. It is not considered to be a malacha. Therefore, certainly, one may arrange this on Erev Shabbos. Place the crushed fruits under the heavy beams, so that the free-flowing liquid will continue flowing, and although the beam is expediting, enhancing the flowing of this liquid, nevertheless, since it doesn't involve a malacha any longer, it is mutter for the beam to do this on Shabbos, even according to Beis Shammai. Says more, in fact, who is the author of this shita? Who subscribes to this shita? That holds that when the juice is already flowing out on its own, unaided, it's considered to be detached and removed and an entity on its own, and it's permitted on Shabbos. Man Tana, who is the Tana? That any juice that flows out on its own is okay. I found the source. Rabbi Shmueli, that's not in the Mishnah. Hashum va'boiser. Shum is garlic, va'boiser, these unripe grapes. Va'malilos, these unripe grains. Sherisken and Bayjayim, that were crushed on Erev Shabbos. Rashi explains they used to crush it to extract some juice, which was used for dipping. So it was already crushed. Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Shmuel says that since the juice has already been detached, removed from its source, so the malacha was already performed on Erev Shabbos, and therefore he may place some heavy item on it on Erev Shabbos and have the juice continue to flow out even on Shabbos. This is permitted. He may use the juice since this doesn't involve any malacha whatsoever. Even if he were to squeeze these items right now, he wouldn't be doing a malacha. Rabbi Kiva, no, la yigmar, he may not complete this process on Shabbos. So in fact, Rabbi Shmuel is the source, shita, for our Mishnah, according to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanina. Since the item has been crushed, and the juice has already been extracted and separated from its source, at this point, it's considered as a separate entity, it's flowing freely, and there is never a malacha to be involved any longer. For Rabbi Lezer, who is a Moira Rabbi Lezer and Pedas, he pointed to a different source, Shita. He pointed to a different Tana as being the source of our Mishnah. Rabbi Lezer Amar, Rabbi Lezer, it's Rabbi Lezer, the Tana of Rabbi Lezer ben Shamua, who subscribes to the Shita. That once something is crushed, the juice is considered to be a separate entity, and there can never be any malacha involved anymore. This not, as we learned, chalais dvash, these honeycombs, sheriskim there, Shabbos, he crushed them before Shabbos. And the honey is flowing out on its own on Shabbos. Asr. It is asr to use this honey for concern that he might actually go ahead and crush whole honeycombs. Reb Lezer Mater, Reb Lezer says it's mutter to use this honey because Reb Lezer maintains once the honeycombs has been crushed and the honey separated, it's free-flowing honey, it's a separate entity, there's no isser involved any longer. So indeed, he is the one that subscribes to the Shita, and he is the source Tana for our Mishnah. Okay, so you have two opinions. Who subscribes to the opinion in our Shita, in our Mishnah? It's either, according to Reis Bechanina, it's a Rishmal. According to Rabbi Lazar ben Pedas, it is the Tana, Rabbi Lazar ben Shamuel. Says Gemara, okay, Rabbi Yossi Bechanina, my time, Allah, Rabbi Lazar. Why did Rabbi Yossi Bechanina not pick? Why didn't he choose Rabbi Lazar as being the source Tana of our Mishnah? Rabbi Lazar who discusses the free-flowing honey. Amar Lach, so Rabbi Yossi Bechanina responds, there's a big difference between the two cases. Perhaps Rabbi Lazar only states his opinion over there by honey, but he wouldn't apply the same principle by fruit juice. Says the Gemara, Hasamhu, by the honey case, the meikara eichel, because initially it's food. Honey is considered to be food. At the end, it is food. So it begins and ends with the classification of food, meaning that honey isn't really connected and rooted in the wax of the honeycomb. So therefore, once the honeycomb gets crushed, right now the honey asserts itself. It's considered to be a separate entity, an independent entity. It's considered to be eichel, food on its own, disconnected, unrelated to the wax, although it's still mixed in with the wax. So therefore, since we view the honey as an entity on its own, it's removed from its source, detached from its connection to the wax. Therefore, says the Reis Bechanina, even at this point, prior to the honey actually flowing out from the wax, if he was to squeeze this wax to extract the honey, this wouldn't involve any malacha. And therefore, certainly in this case, Rabbi Lezer holds that the free-flowing honey coming out of the wax is mutter. Why should it be aser? There's no concern here. Even if he was to go ahead and squeeze the wax to aid and assist and expedite in the extraction of the honey, there will be no malacha involved, because the honey is a separate entity, unrelated, unconnected to the wax. Therefore, there's no room for an isser according to Rabbi Lezer. Why should we ask the honey is flowing out of the wax? Why are you concerned? You're going to make a gzera because if you're going to allow him to use the honey, perhaps he'll go squeeze these crushed honeycombs? That wouldn't involve a malacha whatsoever, because the honey is no longer connected to the wax. It's a separate entity. And the malacha of dash will not apply in this case. Therefore, certainly over there, Rabbi Elazar's matir, the free-flowing honey. However, in a case of fruit juice, initially, the juice was part of the parent fruit. It was considered to be one entity with it. Prior to the crushing of the fruit, the juice wasn't considered a separate entity, independent being. It was part of the oichel, part of the fruit, part of the food. It was classified as an oichel. But afterwards, when it flows out, it assumes a new identity. It is mashke. It is a juice. And therefore, in this case, perhaps, Rabbi Elazar wouldn't agree that one may use the juice that is flowing out of the fruits, even though they were crushed before Shabbos. Because perhaps there would be an isser to go ahead and continue squeezing these crushed fruits to extract the juice, to enhance and expedite the flowing of the juice from these crushed fruits. So there's a big difference between the two cases. Says Rabbi Yosef, I can't point to Rabbi Elazar the Tana as a source of the opinion mentioned in our Mishnah. That once we have crushed fruits, which the process of the juice flowing out of them has already begun. The Mishnah says that a malacha of dash can no longer be applied in this case. Even if we were to squeeze these crushed fruits to extract the remaining juice, there's no malacha involved. As evidence in the halacha stated in the Mishnah that one may place the beams on these crushed fruits before Shabbos. If you're going to be a Shammai, it's mutter, because the beams are not performing a malacha. Because once the fruits have been crushed and consider the juice to have become a separate entity, and they're standing independent of the fruit, and therefore there's no malacha to be applied in this case any longer. So I can't point to Rabbi Elazar as a source Tana of this Mishnah. Rabbi Elazar is speaking about honey. Surely in that case, Rabbi Elazar maintains that the honey is mutter once the honeycomb has been crushed, because there's no reason to make an isser there. There's no concern that if you are matter the honey, perhaps he'll go ahead and continue squeezing the honey from this crushed honeycomb. The honey is a separate entity. It's food. It was never anything other than food. And therefore, once the honeycomb has been crushed, the honey has asserted itself as an independent being. And when it continues flowing out of the honeycomb, out of the crushed honeycomb, it is an eichel. It's classified as a food. And therefore, even if he goes ahead and continues squeezing the honeycomb, the crushed honeycomb, to enhance the flow of the honey, he's not doing any malacha whatsoever. Therefore, Rabbi Elazar's matter. But perhaps in the case of fruit, it would be different. It would be considered to be a malacha, even if he were to squeeze crushed fruit to enhance the flow of the juice. So we can't bring a raya from honey to fruit juice. Therefore, I need to point to a different source Tana, as the Mandav of our Mishnah, which is indeed Rav Yishmael, speaks about shum, beiser, maliles, different food items, garlic, unripe grapes, etc. So if we see that Rav Yishmael holds that in those cases, since they are crushed, we consider the free-flowing juice as an entity on its own, and therefore if one would go and squeeze those crushed items, it is not a malacha of dash. Since we see Rav Yishmael subscribes to that shita regarding those cases, certainly he can be the source Tana of our Mishnah, which discusses fruit as well. Says Gemara, Rabbi Elazar, who indeed pointed to Rabbi Elazar the Tana as a source Tana of our Mishnah, Amalach, he responds as follows: Hashamini Rabbi Elazar. Indeed, we've heard that Rabbi Elazar, who is mater, the honey, he doesn't only apply this heter to honey. He even applies this heter to olives and grapes, even though they're fruits. So apparently Rabbi Elazar subscribes to this shita entirely. Once they're crushed, there's no malacha involved whatsoever. As we know, as we heard, the haki aser of Oishim and Ado, and Rav came from Ado. Also he came, he brought along a brayse as follows: Zeisav anovim, olives and grapes, shiriskum be'er Shabbos, that were crushed on Erev Shabbos, v'yotzim atzmon, and the juice is flowing out on its own. Asur, it is asur for concern that he might go ahead and squeeze the fruit to enhance the flow. Rav Lezer Shematirin, they say it's mutter because there's no such concern. Once they've become crushed, the free-flowing liquid is considered to be a separate entity. It's no more attached to its source, and therefore it's mutter. So apparently Rav Lezer applies the same principle not only to honey, but to fruit as well. Therefore, certainly he can be the source Tana of our Mishnah. Says Rav Yisrael Chanina, Bryce Leishmili. Rav Yisrael Chanina, who did not point to Rav Lezer as the source Tana of our Mishnah, he figured that Rav Lezer is only referring to honey, and therefore, since he didn't hear this Bryce, he didn't know that he applies the same concept to fruits. Therefore, he didn't point him as a source Tana of our Mishnah. Says, well, what about in reverse? Why didn't Rav Lezer the Amora point to Rabbi Shmuel? Why didn't he follow along with the opinion of Rabbi Yisrael Chanina and point to Rabbi Shmuel, who's discussed Shum and the Bais and the Melilais? Why didn't he refer to him as the source Tana of our Mishnah? Rabbi Lezer, my time, Rabbi Yisrael Chanina. Amalach, says Rabbi Lezer, it can't be that Rabbi Shmuel will be the source Tana of our Mishnah. Haven't we learned on that? An explanation on that Shita. We had a machlekes between Shmuel and Rabbi Kiva in the case of the shum, the garlic, the unripe grapes, etc., that were crushed before Shabbos. According to Rabbi Lezer, it's permitted to have the juice continue flowing on Shabbos, and he may use it. According to Rabbi Kiva, he may not. And we have an explanation to put that halacha in context. Haven't we learned on that? Amar Rava Bar Chanina, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, that this machlekes, this heter of Rabbi Shmuel is only in a specific context, a specific circumstance, as follows. When they're lacking dicha, which means pounding, if the food wasn't yet pounded, perhaps it was crushed, but it hasn't yet been brought to the next level of being pounded completely, to kulam le'plig, everybody agrees that it is asur, since we don't view the juice as been completely removed from the source as of yet. Therefore, everybody agrees that the juice flowing out of it is asur, since he might come to actually squeeze the food, and since it's not completely it's not pounded yet, it's merely crushed, that would involve a malach of dash, since he'll be separating the juice from its source. Ki pligi, the machlekes is only in the following case: when they're lacking mashing, meaning they were crushed, they were pounded to a great extent. Although they weren't mashed yet, nevertheless, Rabbi Shmuel maintains that's sufficient to have detached the juice from its source, and a malacha will not apply any longer. So it's only a specific case where dicha took place, where there was pounding, which detached the juice from its natural moorings. V'hani nami, in our case as well, in the case of our Mishnah, kimechusar dicha dami, the olives and grapes, they weren't pounded, they were merely crushed. Therefore, you have no right that Rabbi Shmuel will be matter in this case. In our Mishnah, perhaps Rabbi Shmuel would say it's asur. According to this interpretation, Rabbi Shmuel is only matter when it was pounded and the liquid was totally removed from its natural source. But in our Mishnah, if it wasn't pounded, certainly Rabbi Shmuel would asur, would prohibit it, because he doesn't consider the juice to be a separate entity in this case. And indeed, if one squeezes these crushed olives or crushed grapes, a malacha deraisa will apply, and therefore, according to Beis Shammai, we will not place the beam on top of these crushed items before Shabbos, because a malacha will ensue on Shabbos. So, in conclusion, we can't point to Rabbi Shmuel as a source Tana for our Mishnah, because Rabbi Shmuel is merely speaking about a case where they were pounded, which is not the case in our Mishnah. Therefore, I needed to point to a different source, to Rabbi Lezer, who is matir the juice flowing out of the olives and grapes that were merely crushed, which is identical to the scenario in our Mishnah. And he indeed is the source Tanata of our Mishnah. And he holds that crushed fruit have already, the juice in that case has been extracted and is separated from its source, and a malacha is not involved any longer. Concludes the Gemara. Rabbi Yisrael Chanina, Rabbi Shmuel. Indeed, Rabbi Yisrael Chanina ruled in Paskin according to the Shita of Rabbi Shmuel that once the food has been crushed and the juice has been separated from its source, the malach of disha will no longer apply, and one may arrange this on Erev Shabbos to have the flow continue on Shabbos, and he may use it on Shabbos, there's no concern that he'll go squeeze it, because the malacha of disha is not applicable any longer. And according to the explanation mentioned earlier in the Gemara, Rabbi Shmuel is only speaking about a case where the items were pounded, not merely crushed. So in summary, the halacha in the Mishnah which says that Beis Shammai agree, Rishavin all agree, Shetoinin Beis Abad, one may load up the beam on the olives on Erev Shabbos. Since this is a mili da'aseh b'meila, the juice is flowing out on its own, it's already a separate entity, therefore it's mutter. So who is the man da'amar? We have two opinions. According to Rabbi Shmuel, according to Rabbi Yisrael, it's Rabbi Shmuel, who maintains that shum, beisar, malilis that were crushed on Erev Shabbos, the process may conclude on Shabbos since the juice has been separated from its source fruit. According to Rabbi Lazar ben Padas, the source Tana of our Mishnah is Rabbi Lazar ben Shamua, since he maintains that zaysiv anam that were crushed on Erev Shabbos, one is allowed to partake and use the juice that comes out, that flows out on its own on Shabbos. Continues the Gemara. Shemen Shabbadat, the Gemara will state several cases regarding the halacha of muktzah. There's a machlekes in Rav Yehuda and Rav Shimon. To what extent do we apply the concept of muktzah? According to Rav Yehuda, even items that were designated for uses which are not permitted on Shabbos, even those items assume the status of muktzah on Shabbos. Rav Shimon disagrees. He holds that is not considered to be muktzah. The Gemara will proceed and describe some situations, some halachas, in which this concept is applicable. For instance, as the Gemara shemen shabadadan, the oil which are found in the corners of the olive press, which are designated to be given to the olive press operators as a payment, so it's designated for commercial use. Machzal shabadadan, the mats placed on top of the olives. So this is also meant for malacha. Says the Gemara, Rav maintains that these are muktzah since they're designated for uses which are asa on Shabbos, for commercial use, etc. Shmuel Shari says it's mutter. Another case, Hani Karche de Zuzi. These paired mats, these double mats. Karchi are the mats, the Zuzi, these double mats, which are used to cover the cargo on the ships. Rav Asar, he says this is designated for commercial use, it's muktzah. Shmuel Shari, Shmuel says it's mutter. Or another example, Ezel Chaba, a goat which is designated for its milk, to produce milk. V'rachal Gizasa, a sheep designated for its sharing of its wool. V'tarnagolas Beitzasa, a chicken set aside for its eggs. V'tur Diradia, and the oxen that were set aside for plowing. V'tur Diridia, V'tarma Iska, dates set aside for commercial use. Rav Asar, Shmuel Shari, Shmuel Mutter. And these two opinions are actually based, they're arguing in the same machlokes of Flukta, the Rav Yehuda Shimon, regarding muktzah. In a case where we have items that were designated for uses that are for commercial use, for uses that are not permitted on Shabbos, according to Rav, it's Asr, and according to the Shita of Rav Yehuda, that considers these items to be muktzah, according to Shmuel, it's mutter. He's found the opinion of Rav Shimon, but doesn't apply the concept of muktzah in these cases. Continues the Gemara, there was a student, the Uri, who ruled, who paskined Becharta, this was the name of the town. The Arg is established by some fellow who used to dig up grapes. So he ruled according to the Shita of Rav Shimon that these items are not muktzah. Opposed to the Shita of Rav, Shamtei Rav Abnuna. Rav Abnuna excommunicated him as a result. Says, well, what did he do wrong? Rav Shimon Svirlei. He ruled in accordance to the Shita of Rav Shimon. Says Zumar Ba'asir de Rav. Nevertheless, since he was in the town, the location of Rav, Ba'asir de Rav, and therefore he shouldn't have ruled in a manner which was opposed to the opinion of Rav. Concludes the Gemara, Hani Trei Talmidim, the two students, Chad Matzal B'Chad Mana, when they went to salvage food from a fire. We know the halacha is that one may only salvage the amount required for 3 sudos. The Chacham were concerned if one will get over involved in saving the food, perhaps they'll go ahead and put out the fire. But the Gemara tells us that one may fill up a utensil, a container, regardless of how much it contains. If it's one container, one may fill it and salvage the contents on Shabbos from the fire. So one Talmud would salvage only in one container. Chad matzal b'chad mana. Chad matzal, one would salvage ba'arba b'chamish mani. In 4 or 5 containers. Tez explains that since it was in the same chatzar, so this was allowed. And their machlekes is based b'kamiflik of plukta. The Rav Zazar of Huna. So these two Amoraim had a machlekes regarding this halacha, and their machlekes was based on the machlekes of these two Amoraim. Continues the Mishnah, Ein etzolim basar. One may not roast meat, batzal, an onion, or beitzel, an egg, ella kadesh etzolim b'yom. You have to make sure that it's fully roasted. B'yom and erev Shabbos. We're concerned that if it continues roasting on Shabbos, shema yechata, we have a gzera. We're concerned that he might go ahead and approach and stir the coals to expedite the roasting process. So therefore, we must ensure that the roasting is complete on erev Shabbos. Similarly, a noisnin paslatanim chashecha, when we not place bread into the oven close to Shabbos, v'lo charal gabe cholam, a cake on top of coals, ella kadei sheyikremu paneh, unless the face gets crusted in b'yayim on erev Shabbos. Rabbi Lezer, I make the bottom surface needs to get crusted. So these halachas are based on the concern, the crushing of sham yichata. So a person does not have the option of going ahead, the reason to go ahead and stir the coals on Shabbos. However, there are two exceptions to this issur. Number one, mishal shnasa pesach. Regarding carbon pesach, one may lower and suspend the carbon pesach into the tanner, im chashecha, right before Shabbos, because there's no concern of sham yichata in that case, because the B'nai Chabur, the group that would eat the Karban Pesach, there was reason, they were conscientious, they would take care and watch each other so that they don't come to stir the coals. Number two, Uma'achizin Esa'ur, one may begin kindling the fire, B'Meduras Beis HaMaykid. When they went ahead and they made the bonfire in the Beis HaMaykid, in this room in the Beis HaMikdash, this was used to warm up the Kahanim who used to walk barefoot. They were required to walk barefoot on the floor, on the cold stone floor of the Beis HaMikdash, since the floor provides sanctity kedusha to the Kehanim. So therefore there's not meant to be a separation, a chatzitza. So they were cold when they walked barefoot. They needed a fire to warm them up. So they used to make this fire in the room called Beis HaMaykid. And one may begin kindling this fire, so even though the fire hasn't yet caught on, there's no concern if it's done right before Shabbos, because the Kehanim as well as Rizim are conscientious. And there's no concern that anybody will go ahead and stir the coals to go ahead and develop this fire on Shabbos. However, b'gvulen, outside the Beis HaMikdash, when one lights a fire, he must make sure that the fire catches on most of it, that it's mostly ignited, because otherwise we're concerned that he'll go ahead and stir the coals to enhance and go ahead and enhance the performance of his fire. And that's included in the Gzeir of Sham Yichata. If he's using coals, then there's no concern kosher. Even if he merely ignited the fire a small tiny amount, that's sufficient, because the coals will catch fire and there'll be no need to go ahead and maneuver them and stir them, and there's no chashash Sham Yichata. So even if he merely ignites it just a little bit before Shabbos, it is sufficient and it is mutter. So we learned some halachas in the Mishnah which are based on the Gzeir of Sham Yichata regarding roasting meat, an onion, an egg. He wants to make sure that they're fully roasted in B'yom and Erev Shabbos, for concern that he might go ahead and stir the coals to enhance and expedite the process. Bread needs to have it crusted before Shabbos. Yikru paneh. Rabbi Lezer says it is actually the bottom surface that needs to be crusted. Now these concerns don't apply regarding Karban Pesach, because the Bnei Chabura Azrizim, and they'll take care and watch over each other so that they don't come to the Melech on Shabbos. A similar concept regarding the Kehanim in the Beis HaMikdash. They are mutter because there is reason. However, a fire, b'gvulen, outside the Beis HaMikdash, requires that the fire be ignited on the majority of material. It needs to be mostly lit, so that he doesn't come to maneuver and stir the coals. Rav Yehuda concludes by saying that the fire was ignited on coals, then in that case there's no concern of Sham Yichata, because the pecham and the coals will catch fire easily, and there's no concern that will go ahead and approach them and stir them on Shabbos. Let's take a quick summary of today's blot. We began with the halacha of placing food in front of a dog or in front of a non-Jew. If he's placing it in a Rosh Hashanah, there's no concern, even if they'll go ahead and carry it out into Rosh Hashanah. Then we'll proceed by telling us that a person may not rent an item to a guy on Erev Shabbos. However, on Wednesday and Thursday, it's mutter. What about sending a letter with a nachri? So according to Beis Hillel, it depends on the situation. On Wednesday and Thursday, one surely is permitted to send a letter with a nachri. Similarly, if he was katzatz, if he stipulated a set fee, he's not paying him by the hour, he's paying for the job. So it's mutter regardless of what day of the week it is, because even if the nachri decides to deliver a letter on Shabbos, it's upon his own prerogative. It's for his own convenience. He's not doing it as an employee, as an agent of the Yisrael. Since Yisrael is not paying him by the hour, he's paying for the delivery. He can deliver on Sunday. However, if it was like katzatz, if he's paying him for the time, he's paying by the hour. So then it depends. On Erev Shabbos, one can send this letter provided that the town where he's arriving has a beit doyer, a postmaster fixed in that town, and therefore, if there's enough time available for the nachri to arrive at the first house in the town, we rely on the possibility that the postmaster will be present in the first house and will simply have to deliver it to him, and he won't carry the letter on Shabbos itself. However, if the town does not have a postmaster present, so it's usher. We're concerned that perhaps the guy won't find the yid, won't find the recipient, and he'll look after him. He'll go find him on Shabbos itself and carry the letter with him on Shabbos itself. The Gemara proceeded with two halachas. Within 3 days to Shabbos, one may not embark on a sea voyage. We may not lay siege to a city as well. The Gemara told us that washing white laundry is more difficult than colored laundry. The Gemara proceeded with the halacha of the Mishnah, which said, Shavin, Beishamai agree that we may place the beam, Tainin Beis Abad, on the crushed olives on our Shabbos, because it's midi de asim emela and it's mutter. The water, the juice, which is flowing freely, unaided, is already a separate entity, and therefore it will never involve a malacha no longer. Who's the source Tana of our Mishnah? We have two approaches. It's either Rabbi Shmuel, who said that shum boiser malilus that were crushed on our Shabbos, Yigmar. The process may conclude on Shabbos as well, since the free-flowing liquid is considered to be a separate entity. It's juice. It's disconnected from its parent fruit. We have another approach, that the source Tana of our Mishnah is Rabbi Lezer, who maintains that Zeisim Anovim, Sheriskim Erev Shabbos, V'yotzu Ma'asman, and the juice flows out on its own, in indeed is mutter, because he maintains as well that no malacha is applicable any longer since the fruit was crushed on Erev Shabbos. Then we're proceeded with several scenarios of mukta, where the items are designated for uses which are asur on Shabbos, for instance, for commercial use. Rav says it's mukta, Shmuel says it's mutter, Gemara says it's based on machlekes Tanaim. The Gemara concluded with a similar idea of two Talmidim who had a machlekes regarding salvaging from a fire. The Gemara says that too is based on machlekes Amoraim. And we concluded with the Mishnah, which relates to the Gzera Shamei Chata, and applies this Gzera to roasting meat, an onion or egg. It needs to be completed before Shabbos. Bread needs to crust before Shabbos. However, a Karban Pesach, that's okay because the Bnei Chabura has reason. Therefore, one may begin the roasting right before Shabbos, and there's no concern that somebody will go and stir the coals. Regarding Kahanim as well, they may begin kindling their fire in the Beis HaMikdash because there is reason they're conscientious. However, a Medura, a bonfire, set ablaze outside the Beis HaMikdash, one must make sure that it is mostly ignited before Shabbos. Rav Yehuda says, if he's igniting a fire based on coals, but pechamin, that is okay, even if he merely ignites it just a little bit, because they certainly will catch fire. There will be no need to aid and abet the ignition, and therefore there's no concern of Shama Yechata, and it is mutter.